Hello everyone, it's Mr. Canfield for a video lesson on polynomials. So today we're looking at chapter 7, polynomials, and we're looking at part 1 today. So I'm going to do a series of short videos. I'm going to try to keep these brief. So let's just get started. Polynomial, what does this word mean? Well, it's broken up into two things that have meaning. Poly, what does that mean? Well, that means parrot. And nomial means nomad. So we're looking at parrot nomads here. These are parrots that parrots that travel around. No, poly means many, right? And nomial means name. Or in math, name often the word we would actually use is term. So many term. The word polynomial just means many term. And so let's talk about what a term is. A term is something a president has, sorry, wrong subject. A term is, here's an example of a term, 3x squared. That's a term. Here's another term, 4xy. Here's another term, 5x squared, y to the 7th, z to the 3rd, a to the, you could just put lots of letters on there. These are all terms. And the way that you denote a term is it's a number. And here, let's just do one more term to round this out. Let's say a, there, that's a term. All of these are terms. They all have a coefficient. That's got a 5 on the front, that's got a 4 on the front, that's got a 3 on the front, that's got, oh, it's blank. Yeah, it's got a 1 on the front, right? Remember that if there's no coefficient written, it's a 1. So in case you forgot, coefficient is the front number. So we're going to use non-mathy ways to talk about these things to make sure you really get it. So we got our coefficients. So that's the coefficient of 3, coefficient of 4, coefficient of 5. Okay, now we have to talk about what makes these things terms. These are all terms, and terms are a coefficient and then with or without variables. So like here's another term, 8. There's another term. These are all terms. Terms are very broad, but their terms are connected, or terms are made a term because it's a bunch of things connected through multiplication, right? There's nothing written between the 1 and the a because it's times. There's nothing written between the 3 and the x squared because it's times. It's times, 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 times. Lots of times. So that is what makes these things a term. And we separate terms. So separate this term from this term with a plus or a minus sign. So we have now created a polynomial with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. That's what a polynomial is. It's a coefficient with letters and stuff. So it's very, very broad. And it's a building block for a lot of important math that we do in science and in engineering. So that's why we focus on it in Algebra 1. So we're really looking at building blocks right now of math that people do. So if you're like, when am I ever going to use this? Well, this is more like we're really making sure we get the alphabet and get how to spell. That's kind of the level that we're at right now. Okay, so that's a coefficient. Those are terms. So now let's look at classification. So you might remember in biology, if you haven't taken biology yet, you probably will at some point. Most high school students do. In biology, we look at classifying animals, and we classify them in different ways. And one of the ways that we classify them is in, like whether or not they have hair, or how many chambers their heart has. Is part of their classification. But we classify polynomials in 2 different ways. We classify them by how many terms they have, and we classify them in what we call the degree. So let's do terms first. Terms is easy because terms is So like terms, we talked about what terms is. Terms is easy to count. It's easy to figure out. So let's say you start with one term. That's the minimum number of terms. Less than that, you don't have a polynomial, you just don't have anything. So every single one of these classifications that we do for the number of terms is going to end with nomial. And we're going to go up to, we're going to have 1 term, 2 term, 3 term, and 4 plus. These are like the 4 main classifications that you see of polynomials. So the first one, 1. Mono. So this one kind of, it squishes the word mono and nomial together and gets monomial. It's not mononomial, it's just monomial. But mono is a prefix that means 1. So you can guess that there's going to be some prefix that means 2 that goes here, and you're right, it's the prefix bi, like bicycle. So binomial. 3, most people can guess 3 after we do mono and bi. Most people guess tri. So we got mono, bi, tri, and 4. A lot of people are like, oh, it's quad. Yeah, but we stop giving them special names after 3, and we just call them many, or polynomial. So here's the weird thing is all of these are polynomials, and after 3, we just call them polynomials. We would say, oh, it's a 5-term polynomial. We stop using special names. So that's how we classify by terms. Now let's classify by something called degree. And I'm actually going to give the classification first and then give some examples. So we'll look at degree here. We'll look at the name, and then we'll look at an example. And maybe through that, this will help. And I'm trying to keep this video under 10 minutes, so we'll stop after this. So degree, we'll start, you actually can have a degree 0, and then 1, 2, 3. Degrees actually go a really long way. We care about going up to 3. We're gonna have the special name. So a degree 0 polynomial is called a constant, and here's an example of a degree 0 polynomial, 4. In degree 1, we call that linear, and an example of that would be x plus 2, or let's say 5x plus 2. Degree 2, we call this quadratic, and that you might see like 3x squared minus 7x plus 1, and then degree 3 we call cubic, and maybe that's 4x cubed plus 5x squared minus 7. Notice how you don't have to have every single exponent. Okay, so here's what here's what the degree is. The degree is the highest power of x that we see. So like here in the cubic, I see x to the 3rd, that's the highest power of x, so we call that a cubic polynomial. There are actually names for, at least for 4 and 5. I don't know if it goes past that. I don't know them, but I don't know all of them. But quadratic's kind of silly because it's got the 2, and quad usually means 4. You could think about this as quadra is like a square, and that's 2 is in square. That's kind of where that comes from. And linear, that's like a line, right? We're used to seeing lines. So, yeah. So degree is the highest exponent, and just a quick heads up. Let's say the highest exponent, or we can like, you can see polynomials that have multiple letters in them, like we saw up top. So the degree of this polynomial, it wouldn't actually be the 7th. It actually, you actually add up 2 plus 7 plus 3, what was that, 12 plus the 1 is 13. This would actually be a degree of 13. It's kind of weird, but I said I wanted to keep this to 10 minutes. So, yeah, when we look at multiple letter stuff, we'll talk more about classification. But now you should know how to name your polynomials. Okay, bye.